Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here with the very last NaNoJouMo for 2016. I didn't get 30 pages done, but I did get 16 pages, and I did craft more days than I thought I would be able to. This NaNoJouMo number 16 is called Believe in the Magic, and it features the digital art of Mayat Silk. These are some of her digital prints that she had sent me. She approached me a while back and asked me to do a collaboration with her. She sent me her digital winter card set, and I am looking at figuring out how to use them within a journal. Now the set is set mostly for people to use with cards, and the sizes that everything is in is very appropriate to the cards. I use some of the biggest cutouts, and I could not avoid using those snowmen. I just fell in love with them. They're cute and whimsical. They're going to be the stars of this page. I was just about to grab my white gesso to do the background, and then I changed my mind midstream and went with the black gesso. I'm not sure if I said the digital prints, I printed them out on paper that's a little thicker than copy paper, and I colored them with my inked hands pencils. So I'm just masking off. I blocked off the one side of the page because I want the swirl to end in the same place and I don't want to overlap and make a mess. So I'm just using that orange piece of paper and some painter's tape to do that. Now this stencil that you see here is made out of thick tag board, not plastic. It was a cut file that I purchased off Silhouette. I've been playing with my new Silhouette machine, and this is one of the stencils. And if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I love swirls. So now that the background has been painted with black gesso, I'm using white gesso and a makeup sponge, and I'm going over through this swirl stencil. Now the swirl stencil is pretty loose because there's a lot of area cut out, so I'm going pretty slow and pouncing up and down. I'm not rubbing at all. And I'm not really concerned about getting it pure white. Some areas are going to be more white than others, and that's going to affect the how the layers of color that are going on here are going to look. If it's a whiter area, the colors are going to be brighter. If it's a more grayish area with some black peeking through, it's going to be a little bit duller. And so you're going to get a lot of built-in texture that way. So I'm holding down the stencil as much as I can and going pretty slow. But I like the idea with the snowman, kind of wintry scene. But I wanted something that's going to really make those snowmen pop. And I colored them in kind of pinks and purples and teals. So I wanted it to stand out. And I thought they'd get lost in a white background. So I just love the look of the swirls. So I'm giving that a dry. And then I'm also going to be drying the stencil. Because it's made of paper, it absorbs some of the moisture from the white gesso. So just to make sure that I can use it. So now I'm blocking off this side of the page, and I'm going to use the same stencil and do the same technique on this side with the white gesso. Doing one little section at a time. I think the thing with stenciling is you really can't rush it. I know it looks fast on here, but remember this is sped up double time. It seemed to have taken forever for me. So when you're doing your stenciling, slow it down a little bit. You may get better results. And off camera, I'm stamping into the wet gesso and then stamping off a little bit. I'm being very careful not to get too much on my sponge and applying that directly onto the stencil. So I really like this swirls, and my mind is going a million miles of trying to decide what else I could do with this. Talking about some of Mayat Silk's, the digital art, a lot of it are smaller scale, definitely for the bigger journals that I often use. I thought I could use those on Christmas tags. A lot of the winter / holiday themed products would make very nice on the tags. If you like coloring and fussy cutting, then it's definitely a product to look into. And I'm going to put a link to her Etsy store in the description box, and you can go and check it out. It's a great way of getting some focal points for your cards or your small art journal pages or ATCs. I know sometimes people wonder about where you get focal points, and that's one way to get it through, is buying other people's digital art. So I'm using some dilutions paints and with the applicator, and I'm just pouncing up and down. And I have a blue, I have cherry pie, and a teal color. And I'm just using those colors. And I chose those colors because those are also the colors that I happen to have colored the snowmen in. And I'm not looking for a solid coverage. I want some of the white to show through. I want the black there. I want some pink. I want some blue. I want some teal. And I find just you going over it a couple times. I could have applied the paints directly to the page and not through the stencils, but I was afraid that I would lose some of the stark part of the black that I like so much, so that's why I went through the stencil. But again, whatever effect you're looking for is the right effect. So again, I'm applying the blue here and there, and then I'll go with the pink, and then I'll go with the teal. And since that side ended up just a little bit darker than this side, I'm just going back and putting a little more color on this side. As always, I'm going to clean my felt, and I just spray water on that and then stamp them off onto, this is a coffee filter. Sometimes I've stamped onto little tags as well, and I could have done that here and then put some more of the digital art. Taking the time to do this right away saves those little felt applicators and makes them go a little bit longer. So I had this die cut, again a cut file from Silhouette, and the saying that I'm using, and I had cut it on, I believe it was yellow tag board, manila taggy kind of stuff, and the gold wasn't covering it, so I had to put a couple layers of white gesso on it, and then I painted it with gold. And as you can see, it was quite a mess. And I could avoid this if I had like gold paper that I cut with the machine. So despite it being a mess, I am now going to do the same thing, applying white gesso onto the phrase that I had cut out at the same time. This was all part of the same cut file from Silhouette. This is Believe in the Magic. So it was messy. I had gesso and gold paint all over my fingers. In the end, as I'm looking at the page, I really like how it turned out. I guess as an alternative, I could have stamped it with VersaFine ink and put some, embossed it with gold. And that would have also maybe have given it some height and texture that way. So I'm just using a little bit of black craft paint and just edging the trees and the snowmen from the digital file. People always make this look so easy. I inevitably make a mess out of this process, but it really needed something here. Then I decide I'm going to edge the page, and I just put my plastic cutting board underneath, and I start on the board and I move around onto the page just to give it a border of black around the edge, just to frame it. A page doesn't seem done until I do that step. At this time I was thinking, oh, I'm going to come back and I'm going to put some gold there. And I decided against that because I really liked the tree and the quote in gold. One of the reasons I chose to go with gold instead of silver or a different color is because the yellow orange is kind of the opposite complementary color of the blues and the teals. So I knew that would pop in this background, and I didn't want to lose these. The background is extremely busy, lots of color, lots of movement, and I just didn't want to lose it. Now normally I go around any of my focal points with my Stabilo all pencil, and I chose not to do that on this one. You could have. I just didn't know that it was necessary with the black background. And the focal point seemed to pop quite well. So I'm adhering everything with matte gel medium. When I first covered the snowman with the gel medium, I was a little careful. I didn't want to smudge or reactivate the Inktense block, or Inktense pencil, but it seemed to be permanent. I didn't get any smudging. Gluing down these cutout letters and stuff is a bit of work, but it's worth it in the end. But you definitely could have done your own lettering on there or printed out, as I have previously, the phrase on copy paper and glued it down. With Black Friday, Silhouette had a 50% off sale, so I bought quite a few cut files and spent time the other evening cutting everything out and getting used to using my Silhouette and trying to figure things out. and giving this a quick dry and making sure that everything is stuck down. So giving this a quick dry and thinking, what else does it need? Does it need anything else? I'm really liking how this page has turned out. And then I decide that I need some white splatters. So I'm grabbing my white acrylic, just my cheap craft paint, and I'm diluting it with water in my spray bottle. And I'm looking for my fan brush, and I'm just going to splatter it with white just to give it that more of a wintry, frosty feeling. And I don't care if it gets on the tree or on the snowman. I think that's just going to make just one more interesting layer. And if you get too big of blobs, which I did, I don't know whether that was on film or not, you can easily get in there quickly and remove it with a baby wipe. And giving that a good dry. Some of the splatters were quite thick, so I didn't want to cause problems. So there's the completed page. Really like how the black turned out. Close-up of the digital art of matte silk that I use as a focal point, and the lettering and how it shows. The effect that you get stenciling onto white gesso, and the star. And again, back to the completed page. Thank you so much for joining me on this NaNoJouMo journey. It was a bit of a challenging month for me to create, but having you join me has helped.